Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to the TDR Traded Black podcast. I'm stumbling out of here because I can't really understand what has happened here today. But look, we had tremendous news yesterday and a lot of stocks obviously up. A little surprised with how this performance here today, and I'm sure all of you are, but we're going to dive into that with another big network of guests here today. So let's jump right in to the podcast. Happy Wednesday afternoon. Welcome in TDR co-host Anthony Varell here on a 4 o'clock on a Wednesday. And man, a little rough going into the close there. But I will say, am I surprised that there was profit taking? No, I'm just surprised in how much a lot of these companies end up finishing on the day. It was a tough day, I guess, to swallow based on what happened yesterday. But, you know, at the end of the day, am I surprised a little bit? But at the same time, too, can understand the profit taking.
Yeah, I mean, it's not.
We're not done.
It's not as surprising as it is frustrating.
It's frustrating.
I thought that I was going to wake up this morning, 9:30 was going to roll around. We were going to see Cannabis sell off to the tune of 20 to 30%. They were up 70% yesterday.
Yep.
The last time they had a 60% move, they rolled over the next day, and then they went up for the next week. So, I mean, that bodes well. I'm really frustrated to see names like Air round trip that move. There were names in the other up and down the MSOs that, I mean, it's just indiscriminate selling. Like, I understand profit taking on like a highly liquid name that you can get back into at some other point in time. But I mean, as far as the MSOs, like yesterday was one of the most fundamental announcements that we're ever going to get. I mean, obviously the ink needs to dry. The proposed ruling needs to come out of the OMB review. And then we still need to see the OLC memo that sources say apparently is going to be released as well. So there's a lot to be determined, but I mean, as far as the impact goes of the announcement yesterday, I didn't really see this coming to this degree. I thought it was going to sell off maybe the first hour and then we'd wind up green, especially as risk came back on into the macro markets after the Powell conference at 2 o'clock with the Fed. He kind of eased everybody's worries of a potential rate hike. He also said that they're going to actually ease off of the quantitative tightening as well. So that boded well for the macro, and Cannabis just continued to sell off into the close.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious to see what happens tomorrow on the open. As far as the tape goes.
Yep. Percy Lex writes, it would be extremely unhealthy to go up 50% a day. I'm not saying
correct. I agree with him. I agree with him there completely. I would rather see sustained moves to the upside versus these boom and bust.
100%.
It's demoralizing, and it also kind of just makes a lot of people question what's going on from a capital markets perspective. But I mean, we'll live to see another day tomorrow. And we pretty much know with certainty that Schedule 3 is coming to light out of the DEA's office here quite soon.
Yep. Can't forget about that. That was big news from 24 hours ago. But either way, we'll be up tomorrow morning and we will see what happens. And, you know, great, list of guests that we had on yesterday. I want to keep that momentum going based off this week's announcement. So that's what we're doing here today. And our two guests, no strangers to the podcast. Let's welcome back. He is the president of Verano Holdings, Darren Weiss, along with the chief investment officer of Verano as well, Aaron Miles. Good day, gentlemen. Good to see you guys. How are things?
How's it going, guys?
Chad, Anthony, doing great. How about you guys?
Yeah. Good to see you guys. I'm sure you probably heard our intro, but, I don't want to ask you guys to put you guys on the spot, but somewhat surprised at all on the way Darren, the way things performed today. But maybe this is just another day in cannabis, right?
Yeah, look, I mean, we don't look at this at the arc of the industry on a day-to-day basis, which you guys don't either, right? I know you're long-term holders. I know you believe in the space. Ultimately, this is a complex process. And one thing that we've seen about the retail investment community as it relates to cannabis is that there's a lot of headline selling and buying, and not always an appreciation as to how the sausage gets made. And so it's entirely possible that the news comes out yesterday, everyone thinks, it's a done deal, and then we say, okay, this is actually step one or actually step two in the process. Granted, it is an absolutely incredible step, and it's really hard to underestimate the impact here. But it's not something that will hit the bottom line tomorrow. It doesn't mean that we're going to be uplisted tomorrow. It doesn't mean that we get credit cards tomorrow. It doesn't mean that the handcuffs come off tomorrow. So there's still work to be done. But we are better positioned than we've ever been. This is the biggest news to hit cannabis in probably ever, and we are super excited to be part of history.
Yeah,
I mean, I'll add to this too. I mean, you obviously have anticipations of what news like that could mean, for the market. But Darren hit the nail on the head. We've never run the business based off dislocations in the market, but this is the first step, right? Right now we can start working out. It's like if you continue to work out, you're going to lose weight at some point, and it's like if we keep doing the things the right way, and the doors start opening for institutional dollars to come in and capital markets to open up, we know what the formula looks like, and we know what that'll equal down the line. But this is that first step, and now the highest levels of government are really looking to accept us as a legal industry. But there's a lot of work to do here.
Yeah, for sure. Darren, your first thoughts when you heard the news, and most importantly for you and your company, like how does this or could this impact your business?
Yeah, look, so as you might imagine, we've been talking and thinking about this a lot since August 30th of last year, and certainly before that as well, sort of anticipating not only what the move would look like, but the form in which would come, the extent to which we'd have rules versus just an announcement that there would be rules, et cetera. A couple of things. Number one, I'm a huge believer that when it comes to massive social changes like we're seeing with cannabis, that momentum is everything. We saw this with gay marriage. We've seen this with abortion in certain cases in terms of the trajectory that's gone, over the course of the last 50 years. Momentum is everything here, and we now have consistent momentum around cannabis. The announcement last summer was huge. The fact that we heard from the highest sources in government that this was working its way through the process and that everyone needs to just be patient has borne out to be true. And so we see this as part of what really is a long arc towards legalization. Ultimately, we all know Schedule 3 is not perfect. It's not perfect for us as a business. It's not perfect for the millions of people across this country who want access to the plant and the product. It's not good, perfect in terms of the economic potential with exportation, importation, all the different ways and verticals that cannabis can affect our economy. But it is such an important step given where we started, even 10, 15 years ago, right? So what does this mean for our business? It means, as Aaron said, it means more normalization. It means the fact that we are on a path towards being able to operate like a normal business. We are on a path towards being able to really live the full potential of what these businesses could be to our economy, to our employees, to our investors, and to our customers. And that's really what this is all about. That's why we're here. We're not here, as day traders. We're here because we want to bring long-term value to the shareholders. We want to bring long-term value from a product and brand perspective to our users and consumers. And we want to take over the world. We want to be big here, and we're well on our way.
Yeah, and I want to highlight too. I mean, Anthony, you talked about Canopy being up 70% yesterday, right? I mean, it's a Canadian operator that reaped the benefits. I mean, obviously they have some U.S. components to it, but that shows you the strength of institutions being able to invest in this space. So when you actually think about what the floodgates could look like once that opens up, it could be massive for this industry. I mean, we traded 5.4 million shares yesterday. That's over $30 million in notional value. I've worked at companies where certain firms have established $5 billion positions, just one firm in a company. So you start to put that into perspective, and you start to see it was a huge volume day yesterday, but in comparison to a tried and true, like B of A trades 30 million shares a day. I mean, I don't think people actually understand how thinly traded we actually are as an industry. So, there's a long way ahead of us. I mean, obviously, we all want to get excited and start popping the champagne, but there's a lot of work to do right now.
I think if anything, it gives you a glimpse as to what's going to come. And I think that's what keeps us excited because, let's say that, there's a lot of ifs involved in this sentence, but if we got some sort of announcement prior to the election of rescheduling, and then Floridians, for example, announced yes on Measure 3, that's only 6 months away. Whether it's going to happen or not, we're going to find out in 6 months, but that's what's to come. But Anthony, go ahead.
Yes, I mean, couple of things. Last earnings season, I mean, tax strategy was everywhere. The fact that there is some, I guess, cementing of Schedule 3 actually coming and the genie's out of the bottle, does this catalyze or facilitate anything within your tax strategy on a go-forward basis, or it's kind of been something that's been worked on since in preparation for this?
Yeah, I would say it's not a step change, Anthony. This is something that we've been thinking about and talking about. Obviously, the news that truly was able to get money back from the government was momentous, and I give them a lot of credit for sticking their necks out. That strategy is going to be part of what we're looking to do as well, but it does give you an even better indication, and maybe the way to think of it is just sort of more concrete indication of the way this is going to go. Schedule 3 is going to happen. It's the thesis on the industry, on investment in the industry, on the growth trajectory of the industry is proving to be correct day after day after day after day. I've been involved in the industry, for 8-9 years, and what we talked about back then, maybe we thought it was in 3 to 5 years, right? It took a little longer, and that's going to happen, right? But we are right where we want it to be, and it doesn't mean we're at the end of the road. But the arc of cannabis legalization is long, to paraphrase Martin Luther King, and we're on our way.
Yeah, Anthony, I would say this too. I mean, we probably look at it more like a balance sheet strategy, right? I mean, like, where do we spend our cash? I mean, we, generated 73 million of cash flow in 2023, which is tops in the space. We paid down 167 million dollars of taxes in the year, and we really strengthened our balance sheet with optionality around our term facilities. So, we evaluate everything, as in almost like a return on invested capital. So we're going to start looking at, our tax strategy, our balance sheet. We talked about taking down, the first $50 million of our term loan. So, if we obviously have more money drop to the bottom line, things get a little bit easier when you're looking at the balance sheet.
And I know, Darren, you're actually wearing a Maryland shirt, which is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. It has how it impacted the top and bottom line metrics in Q3 and Q4 last year. We have Ohio coming up here potentially in the next 4 to 6 weeks. With adult use sales. You guys have 5 retail locations in the state. How exciting is that to get that moving with having one of these adult use conversions come online for Verano is really that first step fundamentally this year going into the adult use markets.
Yeah, it's funny. Obviously, there's a lot to be said about the benefits of changes at the federal level and the impact they can have. But these state level legalization impacts are massive. Ohio is a great market for us. Obviously, we report our numbers on a state by state basis now, so you can see sort of where we're trading. Yeah. We anticipate, like we do in most turnovers, as they relate to more mature medical markets, a 2 to 2.5 times multiple on that market. Pennsylvania, we've got 18 stores across the state, a very large cultivation capacity. That's going to be massive for us. And then Florida, which, ultimately is going to be one of the largest cannabis markets in the world. Yeah. We've got the second largest footprint, 70 plus stores and counting. Florida alone could be the size of our business that it is today. And we are very excited to be able to take advantage of that and get the citizens of Florida what they deserve and what they want. So, look, each one of these states that falls is significant in its own way. It really, again, it goes to momentum. You look at, when I was sitting in this seat 8 years ago, it was like, what states are going to craft medical programs and how are these medical programs going to be more restrictive than the next one? And what crazy rules are going to put in place? And now we're talking about adult use. Now we're talking about more licenses. Now we're talking about liberalization of rules, more product forms, et cetera. This is a momentum game, and we've taken the ball pretty far downfield.
Yeah, and I want to add here too. I mean, Darren mentioned state-by-state disclosure, and that kind of leads me back to thinking about how we're preparing for the DEA putting the stamp of approval right on this HHS recommendation. Like, when those new dollars are coming in, we know we're auditioning for new dollars. So how do we separate ourselves as a business? It's, we went through our first SOX audit. We have our S3 filed. We're senior exchange status listed. We're putting more transparency out into the market. So that's a big thing that we've done as a business, and we hope the industry starts to follow, suit there. Where, we're really trying to put more transparency out into the market, because again, when those floodgates open, the institutions don't necessarily invest as quick as some of the former investors in the space, and they're going to put their time and effort and homework into this space. So that's one of the biggest things we want to highlight, is like that's a major component to our prep, especially ahead of a DEA.
You took the next question right out of my mouth. That's what I was actually about to ask. If you plan to actually get more granular. So, I mean, to take that a step up, do you see a Schedule 3 as a primer to get the conversations going with the exchanges to potentially gauge their comfortability, or at least the path to potentially uplisting in the US?
Yeah, I can tell you this. I mean, I worked at the New York Stock Exchange, and as an industry, as an exchange, you have to be doing your homework on what the next big thing was, right? It was biotech, or technology, then biotech, and SPACs made a little bit of a run and they were listing on the exchanges, but they live and die off IPO proceeds. And so this is a slam dunk for any exchange that's going to open the doors to cannabis. I mean, they're going to have a massive amount of companies coming in, and it doesn't matter what your revenue levels are. You obviously have to hit the listing requirements, but it's shares outstanding and it's listing fees. And so we've had exchanges with all the big ones. Obviously the top two in the U.S. and obviously CBOE US is starting to make some moves there as well. But they're doing their homework. Does a move like this garner more attention? Of course it does, but I don't think necessarily Schedule 3 gets it across the finish line. I think there's probably gonna have to be some banking provisions and stuff like that added in there. But hopefully we're wrong. But again, we don't run the business based off any of those assumptions. We run the business based off of what we're capable of doing and preparing ourselves, if and when those opportunities present themselves.
But it sure would be nice.
Yes.
And
we dream. We dream. We think about what it'll be like, but we don't get our heads too far on the clouds, right?
Can you share
when are earnings?
Go ahead.
Are you guys slated? You're slated to report May 9th?
May 8th, before market. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's is there much dialogue, like some of the conversations, let's say with the top two exchanges in the US right now, like some of the things they like, obviously they see the upside potential. What are the concerns they have? Like, what's the feedback that you receive from them right now? Like, how serious are they looking at this right now?
Yeah, I guess I could start, Darren, if you want to chime in. I mean, I would say it's hard to speak on behalf of the exchanges, right? Because we can't, we also don't want to divulge too much, right? With conversations that we're having internally, but they're doing their homework. They're looking at the space, appropriately, and so I think concerns. We've talked about it from the get-go. I mean, there's definitely been anti-money laundering concerns from day one, and safe banking coming in and writing any types of provisions around that might ease some of those concerns, but. Early on, it was, meeting the listing requirements because nobody was making money. And now that we're all legit businesses, we're kind of, getting past that. But, I mean, the conversations are happening. They're continuing. I think that's about as far as we want to go on that. And you can imagine with our capital markets prowess and who we have in our company, you can imagine, we're going to be banging on every door we can bang on. So
it's good. Well, listen, I appreciate you both checking in here today. And,
absolutely.
No better place to be in cannabis unless you want to be a cornerback for the Detroit Lions, because, man, did they have a heyday last week, buddy?
They did. I keep trying to get them to put me on the field, but they won't. So I'll stick in cannabis for now, right? So
yeah,
we should have just showed up.
Put in a good word.
Official prediction, by the way, 15-2, taking the division. Mark your words. Mark my words. So
15-2.
Wow.
All right.
Wow.
Our next guest is saying, "Let's go, guys." So I'm sure you know her, Emily Paxhia.
And she's a Bills fan, by the way. So
is she a Bills fan?
Yeah. So you got to talk to her about her Bills. So
all right.
She got my guy Keon Coleman. I'm looking forward to him catching passes from Josh Allen.
I see her smiling in the background right now. So I'll tell her you say hi. But Darren, Aaron, good to see you guys. Best of luck, obviously.
Absolutely.
And we'll get you guys back on the next week or two, okay?
Yeah, make sure to ask Emily about our court case. We got some good things cooking there too. So thanks so much, guys. Appreciate the time.
Thanks for the heads up. Appreciate it. Well, on that note, as we keep things moving along like we did yesterday, let's welcome back a friend of the podcast once again. She is the managing partner of Poseidon Investment Management, Emily Paxhia. Good to see you again. And how are things? Oh, I'm going to bring you up right now. There we are. How are things?
Well, as I said to Will Yako, it's better today than they were 2 days ago when I thought I was dead. But nice
time
to
for
see.
A deep breath, I think, for sure. But putting everything aside, on how everything performed today, you're like, when did you first hear the news, and put it into perspective what, because I know when we had Brady Cobb on yesterday, he highlighted some of the people that were involved in this from day one. Your name got brought up, and he was saying, like, I'm not going to lie, it was a little emotional to see a kind of announcement like this, and how it means a lot to a lot of the original OGs that were in this industry. But you've been in this for quite some time, and what you thought, like, was it almost too good to be true when you first heard it?
We were on an intake call with this awesome company in Maryland, and Morgan got the AP banner on Bloomberg, and just some expletives flew, and he was very excited. And then I was like, well, that was, to the founder, I said, well, that was what, after 10 years, what you finally hear good news, that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
But we were really excited, and and it all happened really quickly, and a lot
I
of
know.
real positive signaling happened on the back of that AP news leak, which is always, by design, but it was good. So.
Who's the first person you called once you got the news?
I didn't call. You know what? Honestly, I had to get on like a board call. I had so much work going on yesterday, so I was just dying in the background. And then I finally went on Twitter and saw all of the awesome activity. And obviously, our Slack channel at Poseidon was exploding, which was really fun. Yeah. Actually, that was the first thing that happened. Is Morgan, Cullen, and I got on because Patrick was off site, and we got on a Slack huddle, and then I had to go get on calls. But it was amazing. And then all day it was just. A lot of people, I was getting messages from people that I thought had kind of stopped following the sector and just saying, congrats, you guys, like, this is amazing to see. And that was really cool too.
Yeah, that's great. I will say, like, you've been investing in this space for quite some time. So it's like when you see an announcement like that, nothing's official yet, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. So how do you prepare yourself? Traditionally in the summer, it's always been kind of a challenging time in this space when it comes to investing. We could get some news come for the fall, but how are you kind of like preparing yourself for the industry? Because it's obviously tough to predict when you get a day like yesterday than a day like today, but maybe there's some things that you're seeing that, maybe the average investor that's watching our podcast is not, but how do you see things?
Yeah, the way I prepare myself is just digging in with as much information gathering as I possibly can. So since this news broke, which by the way, I had I woke up yesterday morning and I said, oh, it's April 30th. I guess, this wasn't going to happen and we won't see it until the fall, maybe at the best. And I liked that people said April 30th is the new April 20th. So that was
4:30.
4:30. Yeah. But, so I had just kind of prepared myself to continue to focus on the businesses, which we always do while in the absence of federal reform. But since this news hit, just dove right in on as much information gathering as humanly possible. Actually had a call with one of the exchanges today to find out how they're thinking about it. We had an attached call earlier today to unpack this, had a call with the New Mexico operators who have been having their products seized at the checkpoints to understand.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah. And then we have a call with Boyd Schiller Flexner right after this to talk about the case and also to talk about what this means in the face of the DOJ, a memo, things like that in terms of how this major shift sets the stage for other pieces of reform potentially.
Yeah, it's great.
So I know that oral arguments have been set, I think, for May 22nd in Massachusetts.
Correct.
Technically, after yesterday's announcement, wouldn't the DOJ be arguing against themselves with their oral arguments as to the constitutionality of the CSA?
I mean, that's been our position right along, is that they've been contradicting themselves, especially of late. And so we love it. Just further consistencies around the contradictions is just further bolstering our case. I can't wait to hear how the lawyers are going to frame this up. But I would note that, the DOJ came out and kind of spoke in favor of this step by the DEA yesterday, or endorsed it, which I don't believe that was a necessary step. And I think that was pretty interesting move. So not trying to read tea leaves, but just taking note where action is occurring.
Yeah, I was trying not to either. And then I saw that there were a couple sources that actually said that the OLC memo that apparently was completed will be made public, which from my understanding, it's actually very hard to get an OLC memo to go public. And you can't even file a FOIA request. So, I mean, if that comes out before the oral arguments are presented, and that's executively binding, which should make a pretty substantial argument as to the contrary of what the DOJ is supposed to say, fireworks should be going off in that courtroom on the 22nd.
Yeah, I'm actually
go ahead.
Well, I'm traveling to be there, and I know some of the other people who are involved in the case are going to be there. I couldn't be more excited to see David Boies argue on our behalf. It's just a really profound moment for the industry.
Yeah,
for sure.
And you brought up New Mexico. I mean, New Mexico we spoke about last week. It seemed like a very unique instance. Do you have any insight as per why that's not going on in Arizona and California concurrently as it's going on in New Mexico? As I'm assuming the CBP agents are operating under federal jurisdiction, and California and Arizona do have plenty of border as it relates to Mexico?
So unfortunately, this actually has been going on in California for a while.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, one of our private companies actually experienced a very similar situation where they were just simply delivering product to a dispensary, had the manifesto, had the dash cam, had all of the tracking requirements, had the van, the product, everything was seized, and it was incredibly painful to deal with that. This is insane. I could not believe the conversation I had with one of these guys this morning to hear about what they're going through in that state. And it all just started on February 14th. And there's no clear reason why it started and why it's so pervasive and what it means. And I learned some really interesting things, such as that the local jurisdictions in the southern part of the state are actually trying to file an injunction because this is interfering so much with the revenue of these businesses. It's impacting tax revenue.
For sure.
So it's and even so much so is the sheriff stood up about this, saying that you're now trying to drive these operators to manage this in almost an illicit market way just to get through the checkpoints for no good reason. It's unbelievable.
Emily, what, like, do you understand, like, as far as like these checkpoints, like, what are they being asked? What's the documentation that they're showing? Like, what is this? What, like, why is this being stalled? If they're showing, are they showing proper documentation? And if so, then what is the conflict here? Like, what are we not understanding?
We are taking crazy pills. I really don't know. I mean, it sounds like they have all of the supporting information and documentation, and it is the groups running the checkpoints saying that whatever, this is our federal jurisdiction, is not federally legal, and we can seize this, and we will. It's only northbound, and apparently, because I think it's also a little bit of taking advantage of that these operators are independent operators. They don't have a ton of resources in terms of legal support, et cetera. And it's terrifying to get pulled out of a vehicle and have your possessions searched. And I guess, a lot of these guys are walking away kind of like just grateful to be walking away because it's such an upsetting set of circumstances. From my call this morning, it sounds like one company did manage to get a written reasoning for the seizure, and I'm going to try to get a hold of that. And it also sounds like there was a recording of one of these interactions, which I'm trying to get a hold of, because I really do. I try. Nobody seems to understand why this all of a sudden started, other than feels like misdirected extortion almost. And no one can answer how they're destroying the product either, which I find extremely.
What are some of these shipments valued at? Do you know? What are some of these?
I read around $500 or $600 grand was some of them. But the weirdest thing is that I was reading is they're not arresting any of the people. Any of the personnel that are in the vehicles, they're just basically letting them go and just confiscating product.
Yeah, apparently on this audio recording, there's a threat to arrest, which makes it very interesting because, again, to your point, there's no criminality here, really. So this is obviously really important to us because one of the responses from the DOJ to the case, the commerce case, is that no harm has occurred from federal into intrastate commerce. And this is quite literally that. Now, I do understand it gets a little, gray when you get into these border areas within a certain mileage. But I mean, so then are we just saying that is not part of the state, period? Like, I would go crazy. So
it's
it doesn't make a lot of sense whatsoever.
This is the TDR Traded Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales, on with Anthony Verano, and our guest here today, Emily Paxhia, managing partner from Poseidon Investment Management. Good to have you on. You mentioned earlier that you've had some calls with exchanges. I'm not sure I asked this question to Aaron, some of the dialogue and conversations that's been taking place, but without naming any exchanges or naming any names, like, what's the dialogue that you're hearing? Is it optimistic?
Okay, so first of all, I just want to give the exchanges a shout out because they are, and the boys pointed it out earlier. I think it was actually Aaron, not Darren, but who said that this is a revenue opportunity for the exchanges. So, and these companies are real companies and contributing companies, over $100 billion economic impact in the United States alone. So it's an important thing for them to have representation. The exchanges really want to do this, and they have put efforts in DC to try to get capital markets language included in some of the bills, like SAFER. And they have been very keen to see what would happen with rescheduling. The tone today was, okay, this happened, and so it is no longer a rumor. Now they're looking at what they will require in order to see uplisting. So it's not a done deal with the rescheduling, but it could be something in terms of articulation from a memo from the DOJ. It could be something around articulation that the federal government will recognize state-run businesses as being legitimate state-run businesses. I think we could draw a parallel to how DraftKings exists and how the gambling laws have been recognized. That's yeah, and that's one of the things that why we got so excited about this case is it's kind of an analog situation. So I think that there are quite a few things we could see, and from what it sounds like, they are looking for ways to get the approval to allow for capital markets access for these cannabis.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to know there's potential language that the exchanges are trying to get into SAFE, because from my understanding, it's always been a function of they need to revise and update the FinCEN regulations as well as AML, which will be good to get that language into SAFE if it ever gets brought to light attached to anything, or Chuck decides to bring it standalone. I mean, do you think that this announcement yesterday that Schedule 3 is happening catalyzes SAFE in any way, or starts to get momentum behind anything such as SAFE or the States Act or the CAOA that Chuck brought out today?
Right. You know, I can't. Trying to understand the motivation of politicians is truly confusing, except to follow the money. And I think that what we're seeing now is this could either support and be a tailwind to get these things done, or they're losing a little bit of the political benefit of pushing this through because it's already taking shape through this side. Now, I do think the death rattle of prohibitionists is loud, and Sam will not go gently into. Yeah, exactly. They will not go gently into that good night. And I think that as long as they are loud, actually, it could help us to keep pushing this forward in terms of there's political support, there's an election coming, and it's not just a presidential one. It's many elections and many things happening at the state level and the local level. So don't forget an issue that pulls very, very well.
Yeah, it's actually that's a very good point. That I mean, Sam's really not going to go quietly into the night, but I mean, there's going to become a point in time where Sam's going to have to argue against the HHS, the American Medical Association, the DOJ. So I mean, it's almost as if the counter argument to Sam is now being legitimized more than ever, because they're not really rooted in fact for anything that I can see, unless they have a bunch of bullets that they're ready to fire. But all of their arguments seem to be getting just dwindling by the day as far as legitimacy goes.
Correct. And, you know, I sat across a table from Kevin Sabat and Alex Berenson. I will say, in a room where everyone came, you know, the industry does a good job of coming very prepared with facts, because we always have to defend ourselves. It is a game of just say whatever the heck you want over on the other side of the table and hope it sticks. Like the thing I've been seeing the most is about the concerns about youth usage, which literally is counter-produced by the facts of what happens with legalization. Youth usage tends to drop.
Yeah.
So we just have to continue to be prepared and come with the facts.
If people see through that, they must, because if you can just say what you want to say in this day and age, it's all based on data. And I know yesterday when we had Representative Nancy Mason, Congresswoman Nancy Mason from South Carolina, and she's like, look, all these perceptions of what cannabis is and everything that was written about over the past 50 years, you know, let's just put this aside. Let's stop, pause, look at the data that's actually performing, and it does not align. So anyway, you're going to say something, Anthony?
I was going to say the American Medical Association has put out 2 studies in the last 4 months. I think one of them actually had 200,000 participants in it. That was the contrary of everything Sam's saying, that recreational and adult use marijuana laws reduce to, if not just keep a baseline of adolescent usage, child usage. I mean, kids aren't walking into dispensaries and cannabis isn't being sold at the gas station. So, I mean, if anything, legal frameworks and regulatory frameworks strengthen and lessen adolescents' access to cannabis.
Here's a wake-up call. In Canada, we legalized it federally 6-7 years ago, and I almost forget it's legalized federally. This is not an issue. It's like going to the corner store to buy a case of beer or whatever, and it's the same thing. If you want an edible or a THC beverage or for some flour, it's like it's just all these things that are blown way out of proportion. in the US, it's just like, this is completely ridiculous. And
I mean, I guess we've talked a lot about policy, and I mean, Emily, I guess your background mostly is focused on investments. I mean, what are you looking at moving forward, or like what's exciting you moving forward in this space? Let's say over the next year.
Right. And so it feels like the capital has left the room for the last 2 years, just little by little,
I bet,
or extremely quickly. So I'm excited to see people coming back around, looking at investing in the sector. I do think that no matter what happens next, this step by the DEA does legitimize the space. And so I think it'll be a conversation again, which I'm very happy to be a part of after all these years. So I'm excited about that. And, even today, I mean, volatility will be the way we are until the market digests this, until we can get some of these structural issues solved, like custody. I mean, because uplisting aside, custody would also be the change agent in terms of the volume we need around these names. But I think that in the meantime, a volatile day down hurts, obviously, because then I have to explain it to people. But in my world, but it's also a buying opportunity. And, I know there have been some quote unquote institutional investors who are, talking about, selling the news or whatever it is. But I would say that's just trading, and that's fine. Trading 100%. Is fine. Yeah. And that's fine, but we're long. We're investing in companies.
Same. And I mean, obviously I don't want to bring up names, but the gentleman that did sell actually said he was long about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Someone wound up pulling up his tweets. But I can't knock him. It was a good move. From a trading perspective, I mean, he's in the business of making money. Great trade. Hats off. I'm long as well. I'm more concerned about what we're going to see tomorrow than what we saw today. Because I don't think we can go down. We shouldn't go down anymore to where the prices were on today's Wednesday, Monday afternoon. We shouldn't break those prices. If we do, then we've got a problem.
Yeah.
Well, I spoke to after the podcast yesterday, Jesse Channon for the Cannabis, and it's just fast forward 6 months. If we actually get a ruling that rescheduling is announced, and you go into an election, and your market, Anthony, Florida, perhaps the biggest cannabis market in the world, and people vote in favor of Measure 3. Yesterday was a 4-hour glimpse as to what's to come. And one can only hope, but that's the reason why we're long in this industry. And to your point, why a lot of these exchanges are opening up conversations right now, because they probably see like what lies ahead once there's a lot of like movement and just proper rescheduling and legislation and proper banking bills that are passed. But that's a lot of work still, but that's what keeps us hopeful, right?
That's right.
All right. Well, listen, I appreciate the time. You're based, is it San Francisco you're located? Yep. Nice. San Francisco. How's the weather in San Francisco in an early May?
It's amazing. It's
is gorgeous. It's the best time of year to be there?
September, October, I would say are the best times. Yeah. We get like a nice summer.
My 40th, about 2 hours north of you guys, Big Sur, my wife and I spent my 40th at a place called the Post Ranch Inn. You ever been there?
I have not been there, but it is supposed to be amazing.
It was best place. What a view. But yeah, California, man, I know it's gone through a lot of turmoil since COVID with taxes and stuff like that. But Anthony and I were actually saying before the podcast began, when it comes to just climate, scenery wise, I don't think there's a better place on earth than where you're located.
No, because for me, the Pacific Northwest is the best. There's nothing better than NorCal, Oregon, that kind of coastline and that kind of weather. That's me to a T.
Yeah.
Much better than Florida.
It's all good. Yeah. Florida's been great.
It's about to get hot for the next 5 months and raining every day. So I'm prepared.
Well, listen, I appreciate the time. Let's keep in touch. And, all in all, I think we can take away from this is that a big step forward for this industry, yesterday's news, and let's not panic. We're in it long. And like usual, let's be patient, right? Emily, thanks for your time. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Talk soon. Bye.
Good stuff. All right. That was great. And it's funny how you have just a way of like, I think it's going to be okay once you start to talk to other people in the industry. And it'll be curious.
I mean, it's just tough. It's tough looking at numbers all day that are going down. No matter what your psyche, no matter what amount of money you have in, it's just demoralizing when you understand that we just got the biggest fundamental announcement we've ever gotten. Everything zooms, and then everything just goes down the next day.
Yeah,
due to nothing. It was just unjustified. It's just hard to swallow, but like everybody says, I mean, if you liked everything today at the open and you liked buying yesterday when things were up, you should like buying at these prices right now.
Yep, I hear you.
So,
Christopher Brady, good to see you, my friend. Can we get TDR to reach out to Governor Brian Kemp and ask now that Georgians will have rescheduling? What does he think that says for the future of reform, and if that changes his over my dead
got
body
a feeling
plan?
Georgia's going to move very slow. Georgia looks like it's following Florida's footsteps. Carolina actually announced today that they're going to kill the medical bill that we spoke about yesterday.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wouldn't expect to see Georgia really get any sort of progress anytime soon outside from the low THC medical market that they're working with right now.
Who is the one? Was it the senator that I saw briefly from Georgia when we were in Washington? You pointed out. Don't remember.
You mean the gentleman that was giving me a dissertation on the constitutionality of the CSA? He was from Louisiana.
Was he from Louisiana?
I see him on TV all the time now. It actually cracks me up.
Oh, there are some people, though, that just looked at us. We brought up cannabis. They wanted nothing to do with us, but whatever.
No, but I mean, I respect anyone that's willing to engage in conversation, that's actually going to give us their time.
I agree.
To speak. Like, there were a couple senators and congressmen that we spoke to that just looked at the ground or basically gave us the finger and kept walking. I mean, any of the ones, regardless of their position, if they're actually willing to speak and engage and entertain us, I don't care what they have to say. I have a certain level of respect for them.
Well, when we were outside with the Capitol Hill there, you were talking to Don, and JD Vance came by. Was it JD Vance? Yeah. JD? Yes. Sorry. I'm just drawing a complete blank. It's the end of the day. But I remember I walked probably a good 3 minutes, and you turned around like, where'd he go? Because I think you thought he was probably going to give me less than 10 seconds of his time. But to your point, yeah, I give the guy credit for at least having a conversation, and it's good because that's the kind of content we can show all of you.
Oh, yeah. It was funny because Don and I were watching you guys walk, and we're like, oh, shit, they're still walking.
I know.
They're still walking and talking. They're still walking.
Yeah,
and it just continued. I mean, like I said, any guy that's willing to give you 5 minutes of his time, regardless of position on the matter, I give a certain level of respect to.
Yeah. Big shout out to everybody here today. Again, we appreciate obviously all the support we've been getting. A lot of great feedback. Yesterday's podcast, record numbers, was phenomenal. Again, if you could just smash that like button, leave lots of comments, keep this momentum going. I know today was a little bit down, but hey, let's look at it long term because we all know where this is going. And come next fall, like I said, can't imagine it once we get this announcement. And as we usual, what it'll be like if we get something in favor down in Florida. But yesterday was a small glimpse as to what is going to come in this industry in the next few months. But it's all exciting to say the least. As usual, don't forget, subscribe to our Baked In newsletter as we continue to pump out more and more research reports. And I'd like to get everybody's feedback too. I launched Small Cap Sundays with our lead analyst, head of research, Bill McNarland. So every Sunday, we're going to be highlighting 3 small cap companies that you're unfamiliar with. We're also going to add in every week 1 cannabis company. So we're going to be featuring New Lake Capital this week in a full research report that we did. So every Sunday night, 8 o'clock, Small Cap Sundays, we're basically unveiling 4 small cap companies that you're unfamiliar with. And if you want to learn about them, make sure to subscribe to our Baked In newsletter. Appreciate it. Again, smash that like button. Leave comments, share this video with your network. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Anthony, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And let's hope we get green tomorrow. Either way. Oh, by the way, Charlie Backdill from Cresco Labs did not join us today, but he is coming on Friday morning, 11 a.m. So there you go. Along with Dan the Chartman and Guap. Will not be back.
So speaking of Guap.
Yes.
Guap has still not surfaced. That man is principled. He's literally off the grid. That means that he is not looking at his phone. He's not looking at WhatsApp. Guap actually right now has no connection to the digital world.
Volkswagen Beetle, it's what he's told me. Or not Beetle.
Like one of the vans.
One of the vans, into nature, and he said he was turning off his phone. So
I say the same thing. I go on vacation. I tell my wife I'm turning off my phone. Periodically. WAP is not connected to technology. But he has not surfaced.
It's not surfaced at all. I understand what you were saying. Your audio cut out there a little bit, but he's not surfaced. Good for him, though. Way to check out. In this day and age, so many people go away and they can never check out. I'm guilty of that. My wife gets mad at me, but, regardless. All right. I'm rambling right now, but guys, ladies and gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here this afternoon. We'll be back here Friday at 11 a.m. with myself, Anthony, and Charlie Backtill. You'll want to listen to that podcast because he's extremely connected to what's going on in Washington. And what I love about him is he keeps his cards close and doesn't tell too many people anything. Guy basically performs on principle and action. That's what I like about him. Anyway, have the rest of a good afternoon, and we'll see you back here on Friday.
See you Friday.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching our latest podcast. Lots of momentum building. You guys getting all excited? Leave comments below. Again, we want to take this viral. Smash that like button and make sure to click on that bell for all notifications as we start to bring on bigger and bigger guests. Don't forget to subscribe to our daily newsletter, the Baked In newsletter, by logging on to thedalesreport.com. And we want to take this viral, as I said, and make this community grow. So make sure to subscribe on that channel because we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks again, everyone, for watching.